All right, football fans, welcome into another week of the Daily Reflector's Fearless Football Forecast. Week 11, I think.
You call it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the end of the regular season, but it's not.
Hurricanes postponing weeks. Man, yeah, it's probably week 12.
It feels like maybe double that.
Really?
It's been this season went from moving right along to feeling like it was never going to end pretty quickly. So
the inner workings of your mind. This is fun.
Yeah. Well, whatever week it is. Yeah. We're back to look at. We got 4 games this week. Two involving all Pitt County matchups.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to we'll go ahead and jump right on in since last week's video ran pretty long. So
they tend to.
Yeah. We talk a lot.
We meaning you.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll jump in with Aiden Griffin at Kinston. Tony, this is an interesting match in the 2A ranks with an Aiden Griffin team that's unbeaten in Eastern Carolina Conference play against a Kinston team coming off a pretty surprising loss to North Lenoir. North Lenoir's 3-0 in that league, and we'll get to that in a second. But this is a matchup where both teams played twice last week. Kinston obviously split. Aiden Griffin won last week beat South Lenoir and Goldsboro by a combined score of 95-18. It's
a good week.
Yeah, and coming off a big win over Goldsboro, Kinston coming off the loss. So kind of two teams with kind of opposite storylines going into this game, and a big matchup in terms of the standings there. But this is a Kinston team that beat Aiden Griffin twice last year, but this is not. That's Kinston in name only in terms of that team that beat them last year. So I think Aiden Griffin goes in there. If they win, they can set up. If they win and North Lenoir wins, they set up a 4-0 versus 4-0 matchup next week that I don't know that anyone would have seen coming.
Yeah.
Granted the schedule was changed and they weren't supposed to play them, but to say that Aiden Griffin would play them for the league title is pretty surprising. But they have to get through Kinston first. I think they go on the road and get a road win in a game that they have to have in order to set up that kind of winner-take-all situation next week potentially.
Yeah, this is following the Paul Cornwell school of coaching that we've seen over the years. When conference play gets here is when they really dial it up a notch. Yep. And here they sit 3-0 undefeated in the league, coming off 2 massive victories over teams they were supposed to beat, let's be honest. So this will be more of a challenge, and you maybe can kind of think about the challenge of, well, they had 2 games last week and now they got to play again. That's a lot of football games in a short period of time. They're not the only school that's faced with stuff like this, but I like what Aiden Griffin's doing right now. It seems like things are clicking. Like I said, another thing that Cornwell's done is those really tough non-conference games, playing up a division or 2 a lot of times, prepares them for this league play. I think that's what Coach Cornwell tries to do each and every season. It seems to be working again. I think they'll go down there and beat a Kinston team that might be reeling a little bit after that loss last week. And as you mentioned, that Kinston team last year had so many weapons, was so fast. I don't know if that Aiden Griffin team would have matched up with that Kinston team. I think this Aiden Griffin team is better than the Kinston team we're going to see this week.
Agreed.
So, the next game, a team I saw last week, Farmville Central, taking on North Pitt. Both teams looking for their first league win. Farmville Central last week really hurt itself with a lot of penalties, some turnovers. Got shut out, which was a little bit surprising by Bedingfield. I thought Bedingfield would win the game and said as much on this video last week, but I didn't think it'd be a 27-0 game. That was a little bit surprising to me. And the thing that killed Farmville Central, and I wrote about it, was the difference in speed. They could not match up basically anywhere on the field with Bedingfield. Bedingfield was faster at pretty much every spot, and it showed. Offense, defense, and special teams, they were just better than them. So, this should be an old school rivalry between these 2 teams, and both of them really hungry for a win of any kind, league or not right now. They're trying to get a win there. And it's tough to pick. I mean, I've picked against North Pitt for weeks in a row now because of some of those same problems that I just mentioned Farmville Central had. I like what North Pitt was in the game that it had last week, which I'm sure you'll talk about a little bit. I'm picking North Pitt. I've picked against them for 4 or 5 weeks in a row. I'm going to pick them this week because of what I saw from Farmville Central last week. Unless Farmville Central can turn some of those things around, I don't see them getting a win. I think North Pitt wins.
Right, and you know, this North Pitt team, you mentioned at Washington, down 21-7 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They put a couple scores on the board. You know, I talked to Brent Wooten earlier in the week, who said, you know, it was the most fight that his team has shown all year. They were down in the fourth, could have easily rolled over and let it go. And with a one-win team at this point in the year, that is one of those things you kind of worry about. Then maybe checking out a little bit. That clearly did not happen.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, at home against a team that the seniors on this North Pitt team have never beaten. Farmville Central is one that has beaten them every year. But the thing that I look at is, you know, Farmville Central right there hovering around the 500 mark. They have to have this one to stay in the hunt for the playoffs.
That's true.
We're looking at, you know, for North Pitt, they're basically playing for nothing but a couple of wins here late in the year.
Yeah.
Farmville Central's got a ton to play for. I think they go in there and are going to feel that pressure of having to win. I think they go in there and get that done and beat North Pitt to get one they have to have.
And Coach Scott Gardner said that very thing after the game last week. He was like, look, here's how it shapes up. There's no black or white to it, or it is very black and white, actually. We have to win out to get in the playoffs, and I hear you there, but I think that pressure can also get to you, and boy, North Pitt would love to spoil that for Farmville Central. You know they would. So that's why I'm sticking with the Panthers there.
Without a doubt, yeah. So we'll see how that one turns out. The other all-county matchup this week is South Central going to D.H. Conley in the 4A ranks. Conley coming off a win at New Bern that really kind of shook up this whole conference race in that league, kind of, you know, put Rose in the driver's seat by, you know, giving New Bern their first league loss. South Central coming off of a bye, coming off of their first win in league the week before. So this is going to be a fun one. I think, you know, the thing that Nate Connor said to me early in the week that was interesting was they went into this matchup last year. South Central only had 2 wins. They have 4 at this point now. And they, you know, went in kind of feeling kind of good about themselves and got punched in the mouth by South Central a little bit. They were down at halftime at that game last year.
Yeah, that's right.
And had to come back and win in the second half with a strong performance. So I think this year Conley goes in definitely a lot more focused, not looking past South Central. And they're going to have to, because the South Central team's a lot better than that one from last year.
For sure. I agree.
And so, you know, Conley's at home. If they win, some funny stuff can still kind of shake out at the top of that league that involves them. So South Central, another situation where they really kind of need these last 2 games to stay in the playoff picture. But I think Conley just has too much, and they're able to get a win at home. Yeah,
Conley's still, you know, as far you talk about teams having things to play for, Conley maybe, if something crazy happens, might get a shot at tying for the league title there at the end. And they have to get this game in order to do it. This has become a pretty good rivalry too over the years. You know, South Central is still the newest school of the group that we cover here, and they've built that thing up into a pretty solid athletics program. The football team is part of that now, whereas it really wasn't. Baseball and basketball were kind of ahead of the football program for a while. But I feel like with Coach Andy Two's leadership there, they've really, even just within this season, have made some strides. They're much more accountable for themselves. The defense has been much better. And you know, I think they have the opportunity and the possibility of pulling an upset here, but I'm not going to pick them. I think Conley's going to win that game. I think Holton Ahlers is going to have another big game, as you have on the notes here. Over 3,000 passing yards, pretty impressive with several games left in the season, or a couple games at least left in the season. I think Conley has too much. Agreed. I really do. And talk about fun matchups. New Bern at Rose all of a sudden is really interesting this week. New Bern comes in 4-1 in league. Rose undefeated in the driver's seat. Really seem to be rolling with that E.J. Harris kid. My God, like every week, it's just ridiculous. I saw Coach Wojtecki and one of his assistants and Mellow Mushroom on Saturday, and I asked him, I'm like, so does Harris practice at all during the week, or do you just run him out? And Wojtecki said that kid actually gets as many reps or more reps than anybody in practice, so he's just a boundless source of energy there. Nobody has really proven they can stop the guy. But New Bern, you know, God almighty, they after starting the non-conference portion of the season, wondering what the heck was going on with them, you know, they're sitting here at 4-1 and obviously have a lot to play for. This is going to be a great game. I like the fact that Rose has it at home. It seems like they have a real home field advantage, maybe more so than some of the other teams in the county. Going to Rose is a very tough place to play. I don't think that there's going to be a letdown from the Rampants this week. I think they'll beat New Bern.
Agreed. And I saw them Friday night in a game that we talked about last week, wondering just how many points were going to be scored.
Right.
Wound up with 105, but still got out of there before 10 o'clock. So a situation that I'll take on deadline. But a game where they could not get a stop for
New Bern
anything.
couldn't?
No, Rose couldn't.
Okay. Yeah.
Could not get a stop. They got one at the beginning of the second half, but Aycock was in a perfect position to bleed the clock, come down and make a play to win that game, which would have been a huge upset on the road.
Yeah.
They played really well, and Rose just seemed like whenever, when the chips were down and when they absolutely had to have a play on fourth down, they made it.
Yeah.
And were able to get the ball back and score with 20 seconds left to win the game. So I think that's a huge carryover into a game against a New Bern team that the offense is. We talk about how physical New Bern always is, but this is an offense that's not particularly explosive this year. And so maybe Rose's defense can kind of tee off on that. And then on the other side, their offense, we mentioned E.J. Harris, 250 some odd yards,
six touchdowns.
6 touchdowns. His third game of the year with 6 touchdowns.
His numbers are stupid,
unreal.
Yeah,
and that's a New Bern team is going to be really, really challenged to try to bottle him up. I think Rose wins this at home in a fairly competitive physical matchup. I don't think they run away with it, but I think they get the win and are able to they go to 5-0 in league and really kind of put themselves in a spot where with a favorable matchup the following week against Eastern Wayne to run the table in that league and win the conference.
This week probably is for the conference title,
without a doubt,
for all intents and purposes.
No doubt. So that'll be fun to see how that turns out. We'll have coverage of all 4 games in Saturday's Reflector and at reflector.com. You can follow me on Twitter at ReflectorJordan, him on Twitter at TCastleberryGDR.
Yeah.
And we'll have you covered. We'll have football, volleyball. We got soccer playoffs starting, Tony. There's
ECU basketball.
ECU football. Everything.
NASCAR columns.
Yeah, everything you need is at reflector.com and on the pages of the Reflector. So thanks for checking out the show this week, and we'll see you next week.